day, class. So for today's lesson, we will discuss Module 2 of our subject Contemporary Arts, various contemporary art forms and their practices from the regions. I'm Sir Jim Iguban, your subject teacher, as well as your facilitator in this subject, bringing you today this podcast online discussion. So let's get started. So, at the end of the lesson, the students are expected to appreciate the diverse practices from the various regions, differentiate various contemporary art forms, and understand the varied contemporary art forms and their practices from the various regions. So, we have the first one, folk architecture. The architecture is the art and technique of designing and building, as distinguished from the skills associated with construction. At its roots, architecture exists to create the physical environment in which people live, and it is clearly a representation of our history. But architecture is more than just the built environment. It is also a part of our culture. It stands as a representation of how we see ourselves, as well as how we see the world. The architecture of the Philippines, or yung tinatawag nating arkitekturang Pilipino, is a reflection of our country's historical and cultural heritage. Most prominent historic structures in the archipelago are based on a mix of indigenous, Austronesian, Chinese, American, and Spanish influence. During 330 years of Spanish colonization, the Philippine architecture was dominated by the Spanish influences. The Augustinian friars, along with other religious orders, built a large number of grand churches and cathedrals all over the Philippine Islands. During this period, the traditional Filipino bahay na bato, or the Filipino for stone house style for the large houses that emerged. These were large houses built of stone and wood combining Filipino, Spanish, and Chinese style elements. Though the Filipino term bahay na bato means house of stone, these houses are not fully made up of stone. Some are even dominated more by wooden materials, and some more modern ones use concrete materials. The name got applied to the architecture as generations pass by, because contrary to its predecessor, bahay kubo, which are fully made of organic materials, and it uses stone materials. During this period, many of the older structures fell into decay due to imposition of martial law. After the return of democracy in 1986, a new age of Philippine architecture came into focus through modernism. Early in the 21st century, a revival of the respect for the traditional Filipino elements in the architecture returned. So by the 70s, a new form of Philippine architecture emerged with the Filipinization of architecture. This means that the Filipino style found its way in the re-emergence of traditional motifs. The bahay kubo and the bahay na bato became popular forms of architectural to be copied and modernized. So we have the bahay kubo. The bahay kubo is one of the most illustrative and recognized icons of the Philippines. The name of the primitive nipa hut is actually based on the Spanish phrase cubo, meaning cube, probably because of its rectangular appearance, and bahay is the Filipino word for house. So by tradition, this type of village dwelling is constructed out of organic materials, a perfect example of a totally green structure, a showcase of extreme simplicity and sustainability that has been around for a very long time. So in addition to this, the Bahay Kubo or Nipa hut is a type of stealth house indigenous to the cultures of the Philippines. It is also known as payag or kamalig in other languages. The Bahay Kubo is one of the most illustrative and recognized icons of the Philippines architectural framework. The name of the primitive Nipa hut is actually based on the Spanish phrase cubo, meaning cube. Traditionally, this type of village dwelling is constructed of organic materials. The construction of a bahay kubo is totally based on the local needs and condition, fabricated with the ever dependable bamboo or kawayan and banded together by three strings with dried coconut leaves or kugon grass. Walls are made of nipa leaves or bamboo slats, and the floor is made of finely split resilient bamboo. So the traditional roof shape of the bahay kubo is tall and steeply pitched, ending in long eaves. A tall roof creates space above the living area through which warm air could rise, giving the bahay kubo a natural cooling effect even during the hot summer season. And believe it or not, but the humble bahay kubo, an abode whose creation dates back to the pre-war period and which is commonly used today in rural areas, is an archetype of an energy-efficient structure. It is built from natural, renewable materials such as bamboo and nipa. Its sloping roofs are good insulators of heat, and its openings are convenient for air circulations. The bahay kubo is the perfect example of a green structure. So the typical structure is raised with thick bamboo poles, 1 of the 2 meters above the ground depending on the area where the shelter is constructed, providing the inhabitants a safe shelter from wild animals, snakes, and protecting them against torrential rains and floods. Next, we have the Ifugao House. The Ifugao House were usually similar in architectural designs, but they differ in decorative details depending on the tribes. Their houses were harmoniously located with the contour of the rice terraces. It's because the Ifugaos built the rice terraces and for many reasons, but mostly to provide food for their families. When they built this thousands of years ago, they only had basic tools, but the Ifugao managed to create an engineering marvel. Rice terraces sustained by an elaborate irrigation system. So in addition to this, the Ifugao houses were small but well constructed, standing upon 4 or more posts, which were sometimes quaintly carved, and were invariably provided with projecting shoulders to prevent rats and other small animals from gaining entrance into this type of house. According to Banawi tours, local carpenters called Manhabats built the Ifugao houses and did so as part of danga or a free service for their community. Munhabats employ the methods of dopa and dangan, which means they measure lengths and widths with only their extended arms and fingers. The Ifugaos also observe pagan rituals such as ngilin during the construction of the house, so Munhabats abstain from sex rite before they start building the bale. So the Ivatan houses are not the typical houses you can find in the Philippines. The Ivatan people an interlinguistic group of Batanes province in the northernmost part of the country. So when we say ethno-linguistic, it is a group of people that is unified by both a commonly ethnicity and language. So the Ivatan people is a group of people who share a common cultural ancestry and language. And also they built the now famous stone houses for a very good reason, in order for them to protect against the harsh environmental conditions. Batanes is surrounded by major bodies of water, including the South China Sea and the Pacific Ocean. Hence, it doesn't have a very stable climate. But don't worry, because the Ivatan homes are constructed with cobbles and mortar made out of thick limestones, walls, and kugun roofs. They have walls as thick as 80 cm to 1 meter. Doors and windows are made of sturdy hardwood planks, while roofs are made of Dutch kugun. The Ibaan houses are made of meter-thick limestone and coral walls, as well as kugun grass roofs, and they are sturdy enough to withstand strong winds. Next, we have the Maranao House. A visit in the Islamic city of Marawi will not be complete without visiting a traditional Maranao house called Turugan. The Turugan is the ancestral house and the royal residence of the upper class Maranao. It is commonly found in Marawi City and other areas in Lanao del Sur province. So within the Sultanate, no one can have a house bigger than the Turugan, which is the dwelling place of the Datu along with his wives and children. Living in a traditional Turugan house signifies rank, prestige, and wealth. Olo in Sulu has its own version of Turugan, which is mainly made from nipa and huge bamboo. So the Turugan is the ancestral house and the royal residence of the upper class Maranao. It is commonly found in Marawi City and other areas in the Lanao del Sur province. So the traditional Maranao houses from ancient times use kugun for roofing or atuk, supported by the rampatan beams and adorned by a diungal on top. However, during the American times, eventually after many years passed, galvanized iron sheets replaced the kugun. Uniquely, the panolong is the most distinct part of the Turugan, and it is the most prominent parts of the Turugan are the panulong. The carved floor beams modeled after awang boat prows. These protrude in the front of the house and styled with elaborate ochre designs, usually that of a naga, a sea serpent or dragon. These were meant to drive away evil spirits. Next, we have the house on stilts or stilt houses. Stilt houses are houses raised on piles over the surface of the soils or a body of water. Stilt houses are built primarily as a protection against flooding, and they also keep out vermin. The shady space under the house can be used for work or storage. Stilt houses have been around for generations, traditionally built to protect homes against flooding. A number of creative architects have taken to these leggy constructions, attracted by the unconventional design and incredible views offered by raising a home off the ground. So the stilt houses are houses raised on stilts over the surface of the soil or a body of water. Stilt houses are primarily built as a protection against flooding. So, in other words, stealth houses are houses built on elevated platforms. They can be built in a variety of locations, but are commonly found in tropical climate countries like here in the Philippines. Let us now proceed to maritime transport. The Maritime Industry Authority or the Marina was created on June 1, 1974 with the issuance of Presidential Decree number 474 to integrate the development, promotion, and regulation of the maritime industry in the country. It was originally placed under the office of the President. With the creation of Ministry, now Department of Transportation and Communication, by virtue of Executive Order Number 546, was attached to the DOTC for Policy and Program Coordination on July 23, 1979. The regulatory functions of the Marina was increased with issuance of EO number 1011, which abolished the Board of Transportation and transferred the quasi-judicial functions pertaining to the water transportation to the Marina. So the marina industry in the Philippines, since the beginning of recorded time, has been the focal point for transportation of goods around the world. It is the most economical and environmentally friendly way to transport large goods throughout the world. The Philippines counts on the maritime industry as a vital component in attaining inclusive growth and socio-economic process or progress. Its shipping remains the major infrastructure by which islands are linked, as well as connects the country to international commerce and trade. So we have the first one, maritime transportation. We have the wooden bangka. Bangka boats are local and traditional boats in the Philippines. In general, bangka boats are known as outrigger canoes. So the bangka boats, also locally known as bangka, pump boats, or baruto, are primary water transportations of locals in the Philippines. Bangka boats are commonly used for fishing, transporting goods, and island hopping tours. If farmers have carabaos for farming, then the fishermen have bangka boats for fishing. Bangka boats are built in different sizes according to their purpose. The size should also depend on the capacity of people it can carry. So, in addition to this, the rituals involving the bangka reveal that it is more than a water vessel in Philippine culture. It is a repository of an entire belief system in the indigenous society. And also, aside from being used in trade and transportation and sometimes in war, bangka were of central significance to various cultures throughout the Philippines. Villages were known as barangay, derived from balangay, a common large boat type. Both terminologies were used for ranks, place names, and even personal names, even in island interiors. At this moment, since the introduction of motor engine in the year 1970s, the formerly widespread Philippine sailing tradition have mostly been lost. Modern bangka or most modern bangka are motorized and are known as pump boats or pambo or lancha. Smaller boats usually use gasoline or diesel engines, while larger boats can use recycled automobile engines. Bangka are also increasingly being made with fiber reinforced plastic, or what we call this the fiberglass, instead of wood, which are more resistant to shipworms and rotting and are relatively cheaper. Next, we have the Venta boats. Ventas are traditional boats originating from the southern island called Mindanao in the Philippines. The Bajau and the Moros of Sulu and Zamboanga created these boats. They are also called lipa-lipa or sakayan and were used since ancient times to transport people and goods to and from different islands. In those times, the Badjaus and people from Basilan and Tawi-Tawi used these boats as their homes. It was said that they seldom went to land except for the task of buying their deed. Venta was the term used for a Moro dance. So, in addition to this, the Venta is a traditional outrigger boat from the Philippines. This outrigger boat from Philippine island of Mindanao. The boats are made by Sama Badjao, Tausog, and Yakan peoples living in the Solo archipelago. Zamboanga Peninsula and southern Mindanao, the name Venta is predominantly used in Zamboanga, in Basilan, and other parts of mainland Mindanao. Venta are characterized by their colorful rectangular log sails, or what we call this the bukay, and bifurcated prows and sterns, which resembles the mouth of a crocodile or a gaping mouth of a crocodile. Venta are used as fishing vessels, cargo ships, and houseboats. Smaller undecorated version of the Venta used for fishing are known as tundaan. The Venta boat in present day is still a highly significant symbol to the people of Zamboanga City, Mindanao, being used for transportation of people and goods between local islands. Filipino artistry and creativity are evident in the various art forms of weaving. But what makes the weaving culture distinct is its power to reunite people as strong, resilient communities bound by living tradition and colorful textile patterns and motifs. The central groups with their flowery and nature-inclined designs reflect the people's calm disposition. South's colorful fabrics serves as an image of the different cultural groups thriving together in the region: Muslims, Christians, and Lumads. The pinya leaves of Kalibo, Aklan. The traditional decorations for this fabric is a style of hand embroidery called kalado. An embroidered pinya garment is called pinya kalado. These hand-woven fabrics are colored with vegetable dyes originating from leaves and bark of different trees. Pinya fiber is often blended with cotton, abaca, and silk to create wonderful, light, breezy fabrics. When woven with silk, it's called pinya seda or pinya silk. Pinya juicy is blended with the juicy abaca or silk for strength and sureness, and is less expensive than 100% pinya. So, domestically, they were used to make the traditional barong Tagalog, barudsaya, and traje the mestiza clothing of the Filipino upper class, as well as women's kerchiefs panuelo. They were favored for the light and breezy quality, which was ideal in the hot tropical climate of the Philippines. Indeed, pinya clothing is hand-woven Philippine textile produced mostly by the Aklanon in the province of Aklan in western Visayas. It is considered the finest of the Philippine textiles mainly because of its delicacy and its natural creamy hue. The Tinala of the Tibuli of Lake Cebu. The Tinala is a sacred cloth woven by Tibuli people in communities around Lake Cebu, Mindanao Island. Traditionally made by women of royal blood, thousands of patterns that reference folklore and stories are known to the Tibuli women by memory. Fudalu, a spiritual guardian, guides the Tinalak weaving, a process that is enriched with taboo and ritual. Tinalak has a distinctive three-color scheme: white for the pattern, red for the relief elements, and black or deep brown for the background. Fibers used in weaving are harvested from the abaca tree and prepared in a process known as kidungo. So, in Tinala, weavers use materials coming from the natural environment. And these materials are grass, pineapple fiber, pandan leaves, banana fiber, sinamay, and abaca. All these materials are regarded as sacred because they contain a spirit. The tinala is used in every important life event of Tibuli, from birth to marriage to death. This and the belief that it is a gift from the nature and their gods makes the entire Tinalak tradition a vital part of their culture. Next, we have the Tinky Basket of the Palawan tribe of Palawan. The Tinky Basket woven by the Palawan tribe in the southern half of Palawan province is used for a variety of purposes, as a storage container for rice, salt, and personal belongings, in hunting, in bartering where it is exchanged for rice, wrap-around skirts, and blankets, among other things. The Tingkip basket is also experiencing an increasing demand among tourists who visit Puerto Princesa, the capital city of Palawan, and has become the primary source of income for the tribe. Similarly to the other Philippine weaving traditions, Tingkip basket or Tingkip weaving is passed down to future generation and involves multiple family members. A famous handicraft produced by the Palawanos is called Tingkip. It is a unique basket made of rattan and used to store rice, carry food, or even store treasured possessions. So the Tingkip is a traditional basket handicraft by the Palawan tribe of southern Palawan. Tingkip is a shortened word for tinakip or covered, or pinigtakip, used to cover, referring to the body of basket and the cover put together. Its body is woven from stripped and finely shaven materials from various bamboo species, palm, and rattan. Next, we have the hinabol of the Hiligaynon of Imasuugong, Bukidnon. Malay-balay covering more than half of northern Mindanao and bordered by mountain ranges with picturesque spots. Bukidnon is an ideal place for locals and tourists alike. The fourth largest province of the Philippines is also home to Mount Kitanglad, a 2,899-meter inactive volcano, and the fourth highest peak in the country. Amidst its claims, Bukidnon has also been the home of the Higaonon, the least known among the 7 ethnic groups that dwell in the region. Next, we have the geometric weaves of Yakan tribe of Zamboanga and Basilan City. Back in the day, Yakan women traditionally made textiles for their cultural dress, known as the simek, accessories and interiors from abaca and pineapple and bamboo fibers grown on the island. But in the 1970s, Yakan people relocated from Basilan to Mindanao Island after political unrest and armed conflicts drive them away from the homeland. Since moving to Mindanao, the natural textile designs have been replaced with vividly colored cotton, resulting in a much more audacious aesthetic. Today, Yakan people live peacefully in settlements predominantly in Zamboanga City and earn their living from fishing, farming coconut and rubber, weaving, and carpentry. So Yakan wears number 1, the trousers. Yakan Sawal strip trousers were zigzag and diamond repeat patterns made from bamboo fibers. Next, they wear men's bottom-up skirt or the Badju Yakan designed to match the trousers. Next, we have the headscarf, Yakan piece, geometric intricate weave worn to cover the hair on a daily basis. They have also the apron or the Sipo Tangan Ted, has many different designs, but it is the most time consuming and decorative weave of this samek. Next, they have the sash or the Sakan Pinatlantupan is made from a mix of pineapple and bamboo fibers. Next, also they have bride's button-up jacket or the Pagal Bato. It's made from satin or cotton cloth and sometimes mixed with lurex threads. And lastly, brass buttons or batawe, handmade and worn on the woman's jacket. Face decoration. Tanyak-tanyak is a face painting costume unique to Yakan tribal culture, worn only for wedding ceremonies. Circles, spots, and diamond patterns are printed on the skin using bamboo implements and a thick mixture of white flour and water. The patterns are said to have no symbolic meaning but have been used for centuries as a form of cosmetic decoration, long before commercial products were accessible. So the tanyak-tanyak uses only white because the pigment is made of rice starch or flour and water. Next, we have the tapis of Kalinga tribe. The tapis is a rectangular cloth that is worn as a wraparound skirt by Kalinga women, woven using backstrap body tension looms and embroidered with patterns drawn from nature. The tapis reflects the beautifully rugged mountain terrain of Kalinga natural environment. Tapis that are accessorized with shells and mother of pearl platelets are particularly sought after as symbols of wealth and prestige in this landlocked region. The tapis has been in use in the Philippine archipelago since at least the indigenous period that came before the arrival of European colonists. Those colonists would take note of this particular mode of dress considering its modest. Next, we have the carving. Wood carving has fascinated a lot of people, and Filipinos have been influenced by different cultures that make our woodcraft unique. Different styles and different tastes from our native heritage and culture that make us who we are today. The Philippines has been known for a lot of things, but woodcraft is something we are naturally good at. From the northern part of the country down to the south, there is always a wood carving or sculpting province that will amaze us. So the wood carving in the Philippines is a tradition dating back to the pre-colonial times. Native Filipinos carved boats, plows, arrows, spears, and other essential items, often creating ornamental patterns for the use of tribal hierarchy and to celebrate special occasions. The biggest of the three major Philippine islands, the town of Paete in Laguna, has been known as the center of wood carving in the Philippines. Wood carving has fascinated a lot of people, and Filipinos have been influenced by different cultures that make our woodcraft unique. The Philippines has been known for a lot of things, but woodcraft is something we are naturally good at. From the northern part of the country down to the south, there is always a wood carving or sculpting province that will amaze us. While most of these wood carvings will be distributed locally, some of these handmade products are being exported internationally. Paete's local economy relies mainly on its handicrafts and sculptures. They had also suffered from foreign intervention that brought in new technologies and mass-produced their people's works. An example was when Paete's expertise in paper mache was adopted by the Chinese, which eventually made their country the top supplier of paper mache crafts in the world. So wood carving is an important and long-established artifact industry. It has potential to improve livelihoods for millions of households. Wood carving requires a great ideal of skills, creativity, and artistry. Quality pieces can fetch considerable sums of money.